What's up, everybody? It's Riley's Productions here. I'm going to do an unboxing of my axles for the Cuda that I had sent out to Doctor Diff a couple of weeks back before Thanksgiving. I just got it back today. The box is still sealed, so we're going to open it up and see what's inside. Cut it open. It's stapled. So, cut this open. I sent them out to Dr. Diff so that they could be upgraded with his billet steel retainer kit, because the retainer, the OEM retainer on the Cuda had stripped out, and I couldn't adjust the lash when I was trying to reassemble the kit. So there's some wheel bearings. We're supposed to take some around. More packing. Okay, so he did press them on. So here's one of the axles. This is the this one is the driver's side. I had OEM tapered bearings installed in there, so you can see the 3/8 plate. It's a lot thicker, and the billet adjuster is a lot thicker, so that looks pretty cool. So I'll put these down so it doesn't fall. And then here's the other axle that came from the Cuda. So yeah, pretty beefy. Comes with a, that's a thick plate. That was way thicker than what was installed in my previous video, so I'm really happy with that. So put those down so they don't fall. And then I guess there's a box. Oh, these are just probably the gaskets or something. Let's open them up for you. Oh, it's just the bolt kit. Some bearings or something. Oh, he sent me some new seals. I've already pressed these in, so I'll just save them for the future. Okay, he sent me some more gasket seals. These are great. These are Velcro, made in US. These are the same ones I'm going to use in the Cuda. These are brand new. So I'll save these for the Challenger project if I ever need them. It's always good to have spares anyways of the gaskets and stuff, so I'll just go in there. And these are, oh, these are for the flange. I'm gonna need to install these, because since the retainer's a lot thicker, I have to knock out the old bolts from the flange and install these longer ones. So I know what these are for. And it has a locking retainer clip somewhere here. It has this locking retainer here. Yeah, this is a longer bolt. You have to knock out the ones on the flange on the axle housing, and then they come with locking nuts. So these are much better. My old bolts are all worn out and stripped anyway, so I'm glad that Cass sent me these. So yeah, hit up Doctor Diff, Cass Eslick, Doctor Diff, on his website, and he hooks you up with good stuff. So yeah, we'll film the rest of it when we're installing onto the Cuda. So the first step in installing Dr. Diff's 3/8 billet retainer kit is to replace the axle retainer bolts with his longer bolts that he supplies. So I'm gonna install these right now, knock these one out, and then we'll go from there. So once you knock out the knurled bolts that are in the OEM housing, you put the Doctor Diff bolts in. I kind of don't like these because they're not knurled and just they're not solid in the axle, but I guess they'll work fine. The next step is to put the metal gasket with the ridge towards the axle opening. So that's very important. So the next step is to install the caliper bracket, the foam gasket, then the axle with the retainer, and then you have to hit the retainer hit the axle so that it seats the bearing. I use a little mini sledgehammer and then just tap it in there. It has to seat the bearing, it has to shock the axle into the thrust button inside this the center section. Once you have that down, you have to start from the bottom of the retainer, the bottom bolt, and then bolt that up in a crisscross pattern, a star pattern, to 35 foot-pounds. So, and then you pull the axle all the way out like that, so that it'll set it up for the play for the other side. So here's the driver's side axle before I install it. You can see there it says Timken Made in USA. There's a part number. K108601. These are the tapered bearings that Dr. Diff installed for me. That's what you want. There's the axle. Good stuff. Made in USA. So here's the driver's side axle of the Cuda. So I have it expanded so you guys can get a better look. This is the 3/8 retainer Dr. Diff's kit, and then here's the adjuster. If you can see closely, it's adjusted so the back of the adjuster is flush or a little bit sticking out from the back of the retainer. So this is gonna be pressing onto the bearing, which presses the axle towards the center section, and that's what is able to have the play. So I'm going to assemble all this, hit it with the hammer, hit the axle with a hammer and a wood block so it'll seat the bearings again, and then I'll show you how to adjust the play. So with the axle assembled, I bolted down the retainer with a crisscross pattern, starting with the bottom bolt to the axle. Now to adjust the adjuster, I made it so that the adjuster is tightened down so that there's zero play on the axle. See, there's zero play there. So once you get to that step, you have to adjust the adjuster itself counterclockwise so it'll loosen up one notch to where it'll give you that play that you need, and it's only one notch. So I'm going to use a file. Dr. Diff recommends some snap ring pliers, but I don't have any right now, so I just use a file and hit it with a hammer. That'll adjust it back from one notch I need. So you hear that? there's some play in there now. You really need a dial indicator to see the play, but it's 5 thousandths that you would need, so that's very, very razor thin. So but as long as the axle isn't grinding, and then you can feel the play itself, that should be fine. So once you get to that step, you just install the locking tab, since the adjuster is positioned for it now. And you just install the locking tab and bolt it up, and that should be it. So let me just finish this up, and then we'll go from there. So here's the rear axle assembly all finished up. I bolted the brake caliper to the bracket and used red Loctite on the bracket bolts. I torque them down to 45 foot-pounds. So, and make sure not to kink the brake line. I almost did that to the passenger side, so just watch out for that. I'll also reinstall the parking brake cable. That's pretty important. The axle spins pretty good, forward and back. It's pretty smooth. And then if you look in the back, you see the drive shaft spinning, so that's a good sign. All I have to do now is just to refill the center section with gear oil. Since this uses since this is a true track inside, Eaton true track in the 8 3/4, Doctor Diff recommends 85W 140 gear oil. This is good stuff, and it's made in USA. You guys all know how I like that. So, but other than that, I'm going to finish this up and then go from there. So till next time, guys, this is Riley's Productions. See you guys at the track.